And you need to know that when I talk about things that matter to me, I tend to cry. I learned that at Antioch. I have a master's degree in tears. So let me just say, it's a great honor to follow Senator Kelly, who I am sure we spent time together at CSG events or at NCSL events, and we just passed like ships of the night. But it's wonderful to meet you. And it's also wonderful to follow Dr. Craig Lowe, who I have enormous respect for, and to be second after him is an even greater honor. So this has been a really interesting experience. As Barbara said, my daughter sent out a press release without my permission, and apparently sent it far and wide, because I walked into a Green Mountain Care Board meeting. It's a long story. We're going to go single payer in Vermont, which is a good thing. And the Green Mountain Care Board is the 5-member board that's going to really make the decisions about what our health care insurance future is going to look like in Vermont. I walked into this thing, I sat down, and one of the lobbyists next to me handed me her iPad, and there was this press release. And it then made the circuit of the whole room, and everyone's going. And yesterday, I'm at a meeting with the governor, and the governor says, "Hey, Floyd, congratulations on the Horace Mann Award." Where's that from again? And what I found in all of this is that I'm really constitutionally ill-equipped to respond appropriately. What I mean to say is, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. But what I usually do is something, I turn bright red, which is probably the color I am now, and then I sort of do some strange version of, "aw, shucks," that I regret later. So, let me say it in an appropriate way. Thank you very much, I appreciate this. Now, one of the things I had to do in order to feel responsible to this is I had to look up Horace Mann. We owe Horace Mann a great debt of gratitude for a bunch of reasons. And I really didn't know what I was going to say to you folks today, but, you know, I got no guidance. I mean, David didn't call me up and say, "Here's what we'd like you to cover." Nobody said, "You're raising money for Antioch, New England, although you should all give generously and often." But what I did do is I looked up a couple of Horace Mann's essays. The man was brilliant. He was very interesting. And one of the things, he gave a lecture to a young men's club, back in the 1850s. This is during the Gilded Age. This is during the Aspers. This is the time when the only time that the difference between the wealthy and the poor has ever been as far apart as it is now. And he said to these apparently wealthy young men, "Benevolence is a world which mankind, as yet, have hardly begun to explore. We have, as it were, only skirted along its coast for a few leagues, without penetrating the recesses or gathering the riches of its vast interior." He also said, "The power of money is as imperial as the sword." Think about that in today's context. "The day is sure to come," he said, "when men will look back upon the prerogatives of capital at the present time with a severe and just this is great stuff. You wouldn't know it, would you? "With as severe and just a condemnation as we now look back upon the predatory chieftains of the Dark Ages." So what is benevolence? Webster's tells us it's a disposition to do good, an act of kindness, a generous gift. And I think in this political season, I should also tell you that back in the Middle Ages, it also meant a compulsory tax. And it actually, I'm going to do it. I wasn't going to do this. So if you think of it as a compulsory tax, and you reread the benevolence quote, think about it as a compulsory tax. A compulsory tax is a world which mankind as yet have hardly begun to explore. As a tax and spend liberal who's pretty unapologetic about that, who believes that taxes do good in the world, I like that quote. Distorted in that way. So I've spent my life working with people who almost always, through no fault of their own, live their lives burdened with challenges. I'm so sorry. It's all fun. And it's Antioch's fault. Some react well, seeing those challenges as opportunities for growth, for learning new ways of being in the world, for exploring like how one asks for help, how to compensate, how to adapt. Others react in ways that only make those challenges more difficult. I can't look at my wife without crying. It's one of those things. They push people away. They act too needy. They get angry. They become dependent. They refuse to help themselves. They're often perceived as acting entitled. Not so long ago, the public attitude toward the first group, those who react positively, was that the state benevolence for them was, at least to a point, okay. The second group, those who react poorly to their challenges, have always been difficult to advocate for. After all, they just don't seem as deserving as the first group. Yet, prior to this age we're in, we found a way as a state and a community to be benevolent toward them as well, even if only grudgingly and with lots of strings attached. We live in an age when state benevolence toward either of these groups is, for a large portion of our citizenry, no longer acceptable. Even in democratic administrations all over the country, programs that serve the poor I'm going to yell at some Democrats now. Even in democratic administrations, I am a Democrat, even in democratic administrations all over the country, programs that serve the poor, the aged, and the disabled have been slashed. At the same time, benevolence toward wealthy capitalists and multinational corporations with huge profit margins is not just acceptable, it's celebrated. In fact, for some, benevolence toward wealthy capitalists and corporations is assumed, through a vaguely defined free market alchemy, to be the very way that the poor, the disabled, the mentally ill, the most vulnerable Americans will be taken care of. All this in an age when our nation's wealth is concentrated in fewer hands than even in Horace Mann's time, and when that concentration of wealth grows greater every year. We live in an age when injustice is celebrated, even when the outright buying of elections is approved by our Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, I might add, this very same Supreme Court, I might add, declared corporations officially not to be just people, but to be citizens. Citizens with all the rights and privileges that you and I enjoy as living, breathing citizens. It seems to me that the injustices wrought by our nation's worship of capital will come to define our age. The belief that if we simply step out of the way and let free market enterprise work its magic, good will happen. That if we do so, the poor, the disabled, the old, the very young will be taken care of, is what my grandmother would call nonsense. It's been proven to be nonsense over and over again by both history and economic science. Unfortunately, however, money, which you will remember Horace Mann said is as imperial as the sword, is apparently also more imperial than even history and science. And I might add, Aristotelian logic. So what I really want to do at this point is talk at great length about the relationship of the rise into the mainstream of nonsensical religious fundamentalism and this equally nonsensical fundamentalist economic ideology. But I'm really out of time. Lucky for you. Finally, in that same lecture, Horace Mann said that injustice alone can shake down the pillars of the skies and restore the reign of chaos and night. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at least from where I sit, chaos and night appear to be nearly upon us. And unless those who see it coming stand up against it now, it could be upon us for a long time to come. Thank you.